Renn Kolstad tapped his thumb against his thigh in a steady rhythm, 3 beats then a pause as the song ended. The melody lingered in the observation lounge air, a thread of sound that seemed to vibrate through the recycled atmosphere. He had been listening for 3 hours and the language still escaped him, but the emotion did not. Grief and celebration, woven together so tightly that neither could exist without the other. Gree sat across from him, their meter-tall frame folding into a cushion designed for larger beings. The bioluminescence in their translucent skin shifted from steady gold to a warmer amber as they finished the translation. The song described the formation of the Glimmer home moon, a process that took 15,000 years and ended with the first emergence of their species from the molten core. Renn made a note on his datapad. The structure of the song cycle mirrored human epic poetry, the same call-and-response pattern, the same repetition of key phrases for emphasis. A convergent cultural pattern. He found it beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, proof that sentience arrived at the same answers across light years of separation. "We call this the lament of becoming," Gree said. "Their standard was careful, each word placed with precision. It is sung at every birth and every death. The same melody, the same words." Renn nodded. "That makes sense. You mark the boundaries of existence with the same story." Gree's bioluminescence pulsed brighter, a flash of approval. "You understand." The observation lounge door slid open, and Tova Merrick stepped through with a flat look on her weathered face. The coin on her knuckles stopped moving. She did not sit down. "We have a problem," she said. "Voidkin ship just entered the system. No diplomatic clearance, no response to hails." Renn's thumb stopped tapping. The Glimmer system was protected space under Praxis Conclave jurisdiction. Any vessel entering without prior notification was a violation of the border treaty signed 40 years ago. A violation that, in his experience, meant the violator did not care about treaties. "What trajectory?" he asked. "Intercept course with the home moon." Tova's voice stayed flat, but her hand moved to the coin and started rolling again. "ETA 4 hours at current thrust." Gree's skin shifted to deep blue, the color Renn had learned to associate with shame or fear. They folded their hands together and spoke in a lower register than usual. "We have seen Voidkin before. 3 generations passed. They came with offers of knowledge and left with samples taken from volunteers who trusted them." Renn set the datapad aside. "What happened to the volunteers?" The blue deepened, almost violet. They did not recover. Their resonance fragments were removed and their minds would not settle. They lived, but they were no longer themselves. Tova's coin stopped again. She looked at the window where the dark side of the Glimmer moon filled the view, a curve of shadow against the starfield. Geller stepped forward from the guest alcove, their coral-colored skin catching the low light. The Praxis diplomat blinked in their staggered pattern, left then right, a sign of deep concentration. They opened a datapad and placed it on the table with deliberate care. "The Praxis Conclave has no treaty covering Voidkin research fleets near client species," Geller said. Their voice was calm, almost serene, but Renn caught the low hum of anxiety beneath it. "I advise extreme caution. The Voidkin are powerful. The Conclave will not risk a confrontation for an unprotected species." "Unprotected," Renn repeated. The word sat in his mouth like a stone. Geller blinked again. "The Glimmer are not signatories to any defensive pact. They are an observed species, not a protected one. There is a legal distinction." Renn looked at Gree. The small being's bioluminescence had dimmed to a faint pulse, barely visible against the station's artificial light. They were watching the conversation unfold as if it were happening to someone else. Tova's hand moved to her earpiece. She listened for a moment and her expression shifted, a flicker of something Renn had never seen on her face before. Concern, real concern. "I have a wider scan," she said. "The Ghost Net picked up a frequency signature from the Voidkin ship. It matches the Glimmer biological pulse." Renn felt the pieces click together in his mind. The Voidkin were not here for random study. They were not here for tissue samples or cultural observation. They were hunting the resonance core, the living structure at the heart of the Glimmer moon, the lattice of neural signatures that held an entire species' history, the thing that could not be copied without killing every Glimmer linked to it. He stood up and walked to the observation window. The dark side of the moon filled the lower half of the viewport, and above it the starfield spread out like scattered salt. Somewhere out there a Voidkin ship was drifting into geosynchronous orbit, positioning itself directly above the moon's crust. The hum of the station's gravity generators vibrated through the floor. The air carried the clean, cold smell of recycled atmosphere mixed with the faint ozone tang of charged processors. Everything felt ordinary, routine, the same sensory fabric he had lived inside for 6 months. Gree came to stand beside him. Their bioluminescence had shifted to a desperate blue-amber, a color Renn had never seen before. It looked like a warning. "They mean to enter the core," Gree said. "They mean to extract it." Renn watched the starfield and felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Not fear, but clarity. The Glimmer were not a research opportunity. They were not a biological resource waiting to be harvested. They were a people with a history encoded in living tissue, and the Voidkin intended to decode them like a dead language. He made a quiet decision. He would not let that happen. Tova's voice cut through the silence. "The Voidkin ship is hailing us." "Put it through," Renn said. The speakers crackled. Then the vibration began, a low thrum that came through the deck plates rather than through the audio system. It resonated in Renn's chest, in his teeth, in the bones of his skull. The voice was not a voice. It was a presence, a pressure, a weight that pressed against every surface. "Your core is incomplete," the vibration said. It spoke standard with perfect precision, but the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We will complete it." Gree's bioluminescence went dark. Their skin turned a flat gray, the color of extinction, the color of nothing. The transmission ended. The vibration stopped. The observation lounge fell into a silence so complete that Renn could hear his own pulse in his ears. He looked at Gree. The small being was frozen, their body still as stone, their eyes fixed on a point that did not exist. Renn tapped his thumb against his thigh. 3 beats, then a pause, then 3 more. Tova's coins started rolling again. Geller opened their mouth to speak, and closed it without a word. Renn looked at the starfield and thought about the song cycle he had just heard, the lament of becoming, the melody that marked every birth and every death. He thought about the 15,000 years of history encoded in living tissue beneath the moon's crust. He thought about the Voidkin ship drifting in the dark, waiting to complete something that was not incomplete. He thought about what he was going to do next. The deck plates hummed beneath his feet. The warm air tasted of wet stone and something older, something that had been cooking in the planet's bones for millennia. Renn watched them descend. 3 Voidkin constructs glided into the cavern, their shimmering forms casting no shadows on the crystal floor. They left no marks. No dust disturbed behind them. Behind them, Vexil's presence arrived as a denser distortion in the air, a place where the light bent wrong. Renn stepped forward. He placed himself between the constructs and Gree. The Glimmer stood with one hand pressed against the resonance core, their translucent skin flaring a slow, steady gold. He spoke in standard, loud enough to carry. The Glimmer are a sentient species under human protectorate status by treaty with the Praxis Conclave. Any interference with their sovereignty is a violation of that agreement. The vibration came through the cavern walls. It resonated in his chest, in his teeth. The Praxis Treaty does not cover research access. Vexil's voice was not sound. It was the floor humming against his boots, the crystal formation singing at a frequency just below hearing. "We are not here for territory. We are here for knowledge. The core holds a resonance pattern we have sought for 80 cycles. We will extract it." Gree's hand pressed deeper into the frozen light of the core. Their skin blazed gold, bright as a star, bright as defiance. "Core is us, take it, we die." The words broke in their throat, standard straining around a language not built for it. The gold light flickered and held. Renn's thumb stopped tapping. He raised his communicator and punched the channel direct to Relay 4. The burst would travel through the ghost net, instant across the void, untraceable, uncuttable. Tova, lock the archive. Full cultural copy. Prepare evacuation protocols for any Glimmer who want to leave. The communicator went silent. He lowered his hand. One of the constructs moved. It did not walk, it flowed forward, a shimmering tide that resolved into a hand reaching for Gree. Renn moved without thinking. He crossed the distance in 2 strides and shoved the construct. His hand passed through the shimmer. The cold hit him like a wall, not the cold of ice or space, the cold of absence of something that should have been there but was not. It felt like pushing against deep water, heavy and yielding and utterly wrong. The resistance pushed back, and then the construct recoiled. It retreated 2 meters and stopped. Silence, the cavern held its breath. Vexil's presence shifted. The bent light in the air turned toward Renn with a slow, deliberate focus. "You touched it." The vibration was different now, sharper, a question wearing the shape of a statement. "No organic has done that." Renn looked at his hand. The skin was pale, almost white. Numb. He flexed his fingers and felt nothing, just a remote sense of movement like watching someone else's hand through fog. He had felt the construct push back. It had felt him. Gree made a sound, a low trill of warning. Their gold light dimmed to deep blue. Renn did not step back. He looked at the bent air where Vexel stood, and he understood something that shifted the ground beneath his feet. These beings had never been challenged. Not physically, not directly. They moved through the galaxy like a question that no one had ever answered with anything but surrender. They had assumptions. They believed the constructs were untouchable because no one had ever touched them. Assumptions could be broken. He said nothing. He held his ground. The bent light hung motionless for a long moment. Then Vexel's constructs turned, flowing back toward the cavern's entrance in that same silent glide. Vexel's presence followed, but paused at the threshold. The vibration came through the stone one last time. "You have 3 standard days to vacate the Glimmer moon. We will begin core extraction at the end of that period. Resistance will be met with conversion of all organic matter in the cavern." The light straightened, the hum faded. They were gone. Renn stood in the warm, wet air and listened to the crystal formations sing their low song. Gree's hand slipped from the core. The blue of their skin flickered, uncertain. Renn looked at his pale hand. He had no fleet. He had a station full of civilians and a ghost net that could carry a message but could not stop a ship. He had 3 days and a people who would die if he could not find something the Voidkin had never encountered before. He looked at Gree. The Glimmer stared back at him with eyes the color of deep water, and Renn realized he had already begun to become something else. A scholar who believed in dialogue had just shoved a god. There was no going back from that. He activated his communicator again. "Tova, I need a channel to Admiral Delaney. Priority 1. Tell him we have a situation that requires a weapon no one has built yet." The communicator crackled. Tova's voice came through tight and controlled. "Delaney is 3 sectors away. He cannot get here in 3 days." Renn looked at his hand. The numbness was fading, replaced by a cold ache that crawled up his wrist. "I know, but he needs to know what we are about to try." He ended the transmission and turned to face the core. The frozen lightning hung in the amber gel, patient and eternal, carrying the lives of every Glimmer who had ever lived. It pulsed at frequencies his instruments could never fully capture. It was alive. It would not survive extraction. Renn tapped his thumb against his thigh once, twice, 3 times. Then he stopped. The smell of burnt coffee hung in the control room air. Tova Merrick let the coin roll across her knuckles one last time, then she slapped it flat on the console. The transfer window was open. She initiated the Ghost Net protocol. The system blinked once in acknowledgement, then the main display split into a cascade of file trees. Human archives, art, science, history, every recorded language dialect began compressing into data packets. Each packet was a seed designed to replicate across the node network until every relay in 200 systems held a fragment of the whole. The progress bar appeared at the bottom of her screen. 4 hours estimated. Tova did not look away from the numbers. The secondary console chimed. Admiral Delaney's face filled the left display panel. His hair was gray and uncombed, and the scar tissue across his cheek caught the light from his own bridge. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. He said, "Merrick." The voice was tired but level. "Admiral," she said. Delaney did not waste time. "I cannot commit fleet assets to the Glimmer system. The Voidkin fleet in this sector outnumbers us 4 to 1, and we have no treaty obligation to the Glimmer Protectorate. You need to evacuate all human personnel. That is an advisory, not an order, but I recommend you take it." Tova kept her hand still on the console. She said, "We are not leaving Gree and the Glimmer behind." Delaney was silent for a long moment. The low hum of data transfer filled the gap. Then he said, "I am not ordering you to stay, but I am ordering you not to provoke a wider conflict. Use your judgment." The channel cut before she could respond. The screen went dark. Tova let out a slow breath. She picked up the coin and started it moving again across her fingers, a single fluid motion. The door hissed open. Jeller stepped into the control room, their coral-colored skin flushed a deeper shade than usual. The breathing slits along their cheeks fluttered slightly. They stopped beside Tova and stood rigid, arms folded. Tova said you heard him. Jeller's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I am not authorized to help you. Tova looked at them. Jeller went on, but I am not authorized to stop you either. Praxis protocol requires observers to remain neutral. They paused. Neutrality can look a lot like not seeing things. Jeller turned and walked out of the control room without another word. The door closed behind them with a soft click. One of the technicians behind Tova cleared his throat. He was young, maybe 25, with a nervous habit of rubbing his palms on his trousers. Station master, he said. What do we do? Tova opened a secondary channel. The GhostNet node operators came online one by one. Relay stations, private transmitters, derelict science outposts with jury-rigged antennas. 200 systems, 200 human voices waiting. She typed a single message in plain text. Voidkin aggression in Glimmer system. Cultural integrity threat. Any node with spare bandwidth send copies of local archives to Relay 4. This is the signal. The replies came back within seconds. Copy, Station Vanguard sending now. Copy, Helios node transmitting. Copy, Outpost 7 holding archive, transmitting in 1 minute. Tova turned to the technician. She said, start routing incoming data to the GhostNet seed bank. Prioritize anything flagged as linguistically unique or historically singular. The common stuff can wait. He nodded and turned to his console. The progress bar on the main display moved to 6%. Tova sat back in her chair and watched the numbers tick upward. The burnt coffee smell from the mug she had forgotten to clean drifted past her nose. She did not reach for it. She realized then what she was doing. It was not just an archive transfer. It was a dead drop, a distributed copy of everything humanity had ever recorded, spread across 200 hiding places. If Relay 4 fell, the GhostNet would still hold the pieces. The knowledge would survive even if the people did not. She felt a strange peace settle over her. No longer trying to win. She was trying to make sure losing left nothing to take. The progress bar moved to 11%. The blue-white curve of the Glimmer moon filled the scratched window to her right, its surface pocked with craters and threaded with faint glowing veins of the resonance core below. The light reflected off the glass and cast a pale wash across the control panels. Tova watched the moon and thought about Gree, about the song cycle, about the quiet way the Glimmer had placed their hand into the core and offered everything they were. She said to no one in particular, we are not going to be the ones who let them die for nothing. The proximity alarm screamed. Every display in the control room flickered. The main screen snapped from the archive progress to a tactical overlay. A single red icon had appeared on the edge of the system, closing fast. The Voidkin research vessel was breaking orbit from the moon. No, the vessel was descending. It was coming toward the station. Tova's fingers flew across the console. The tactical scan resolved the ship's silhouette, disc-shaped, dark as oil, 200 meters across. The gravity shear at its belly showed as a distortion on the sensor display, a place where the background radiation bent and thinned. The gravity shear was active. The station's structural integrity alert flashed amber. Tova opened a direct channel to Renn's personal communicator. She did not have time to craft a careful message. She just spoke. She said, they are coming here first. She looked at the progress bar, 22%. The ship was 3 minutes out. Tova closed her eyes for half a second. Then she opened them and began routing power from the archive transfer to the station's kinetic barriers. She said to the technicians, lock down every node. Seal the databanks. If they breach the hull, you know the protocol. The youngest technician looked at her. His face was pale. He said, we have to purge the core. Tova shook her head. She said, not yet. But she did not say what she was waiting for. The gravity shear hummed through the vessel's exterior membrane, a vibration that translated into the compressed dark matter as a ripple of pressure. Vexel perceived it the way a creature of atmosphere might feel wind shift before rain. The human station hung in the void below them, its kinetic barriers shimmering at the wrong frequencies. Primitive, inefficient. And yet the data kept flowing. Vexel accessed the GhostNet's public-facing nodes through a fragment of consciousness anchored in the station's communication relay. The archive packets were encrypted with quantum keys that shifted every microcycle. The metadata alone told the story. 200 systems receiving copies of human cultural records, historical documents, biological schematics, linguistic databases. Everything they had was being scattered to the dark. Efficient, almost admirable in its desperation. The ship's core intelligence fed new readings through Vexil's awareness. The station had subsurface tectonic stabilizers that did not match any known human industrial pattern. They were arranged in a radial cluster beneath the command center. Not stabilizers, something else. Vexil held the gravity shear at a fixed distance from the station's hull. The shear could tear through the plating in 3 seconds if activated. The kinetic barriers would collapse in 2. The humans had no energy weapons to bypass the adaptive plating. They were defenseless in any meaningful sense. They were also not running. The evacuation shuttles had launched from the station's lower bays. Vexil counted 17 of them streaking toward the inner system. But the command center remained staffed. The Ghost Net relay continued transmitting. The station was holding position as if it expected a negotiation. Vexil opened a channel to the command center. A construct on the station's surface, one of 3 deployed during the confrontation in the crystalline cavern, received the connection and projected Vexil's presence through its shimmering form. The construct stood in the center of the room. Tova Merrick faced it from behind a console that glowed with tactical overlays. A small coin rolled across her knuckles in a steady cycle. Left to right, right to left. The motion never broke. 2 human technicians worked at nearby stations, their hands moving across holographic interfaces. They had stopped speaking when the construct appeared. The room had gone still. Vexil spoke through the construct's vibration field. The words resonated through the deck plating. Your archives are dispersed. Your station is useless. Why are you still here? Tova's coin stopped mid-roll. She caught it against her palm. Then she looked at the construct, directly at the region of shimmering space where a face would be if the Voidkin possessed such features. Because if I leave, you win without learning anything. And I need you to learn something. You cannot just take what you want from people and expect them to forget. Vexil processed the statement. The linguistic structure was clear. The semantic content was not. The human was assigning value to an abstract concept, learning, as if it had weight comparable to survival. We do not require your permission. Tova smiled. It was not a warm expression. It was the kind of smile a person wore when they had already lost everything they cared about and had nothing left to bargain with. Then you have no idea what you are about to lose. A gap opened in Vexil's awareness. It was not fear. The Voidkin did not experience fear as organic species understood it. They experienced threat calculation, risk assessment, probability modeling. This was something else. A space where understanding should be and was not. The human had made a claim that Vexil could not verify through available data, but could not dismiss through logical contradiction. The gap felt like the moment before a system failure, like a component under stress that had not yet fractured. Vexil examined the construct's sensory memory. The human's face showed small lines around her eyes, fatigue damage, tissue degradation. Her posture showed no elevated muscle tension. Her pulse rate, measured through the construct's proximity sensors, was steady at 62 beats per minute. She was not afraid. She was not bluffing. The station's subsurface structures returned to Vexil's attention. The tectonic drivers hidden beneath the command center. A weapon of last resort designed to destabilize a planet's crust. But the station was not a planet. It was a rock 400 meters across, anchored to an asteroid belt. If those drivers activated, they would not destabilize a crust. They would shatter the rock itself. The human would destroy her own station before letting it be captured. Vexil disengaged the gravity shear. The vibration through the dark matter subsided as the ship's belly lifted away from the station's hull. The construct in the command center began to dissolve at its edges. You have been given 24 hours. Then we will take the core with or without your permission. I will observe your decision. The construct collapsed into a thread of shimmer that vanished against the deck plating. Vexil withdrew to the vessel's core. The absolute darkness of the ship's interior pressed in from all directions, no light, no sound, only the compressed certainty of dark matter folded around a point of will. The gap remained, that absence of understanding. The human had called it learning. Vexil considered the archived records of human behavior. The species had a documented history of self-destructive defiance. Individuals had chosen death over submission in 37% of recorded first contact scenarios across 3 centuries. The pattern was statistically significant but strategically irrational. Yet this was not defiance for its own sake. The human had said she needed Vexil to learn something. She had framed the encounter as an educational transaction rather than a survival negotiation. Vexil accessed the public metadata from the ghost net again. 200 systems. The archives were already beyond reach. Even if the Voidkin destroyed every relay, the data would persist in copies scattered across the Verge sector. The information could not be silenced. The humans had won that battle before the first shot was fired. Vexil examined the gap in their own understanding. The sensation was uncomfortable in the same way a calculation error was uncomfortable, not painful, but wrong. A piece of the equation did not fit. The human's final words replayed in the construct's memory buffer. Then you have no idea what you are about to lose. Vexil had no answer to that. The ship held position in the void, waiting for a decision that Tova Merrick had already made. The floor hums beneath Renn's boots, a low vibration that climbs through his shins and settles in his chest. The resonance core pulses at half its normal strength, strands of blue-gold light flickering inside the amber gel like a failing heartbeat. The air tastes sharp, ozone, and something biological, something stressed. Gree stands at the core's edge. Their bioluminescence has faded to a dim gray-blue, barely visible against the cavern's shadows. They have been linked to the core for 23 hours straight, feeding it energy, keeping it alive. 12 Glimmer elders surround them in a loose circle. Their bodies flicker with weak light, each pulse slower than the last. They have refused evacuation. Every ship that left the moon carried empty seats. A holographic projector hums to life on the cavern floor. Tova Merrick's face appears, pixelated around the edges. Her silver-streaked hair is loose. She looks exhausted. Renn speaks first. His voice scrapes out dry. "Tell me." "Admiral Delaney sent a frigate," Tova says. "The last call. It carries no heavy weapons. The captain has orders to observe and report, nothing more." Renn closes his eyes. He understands what this is. A gesture. A flag planted to say we were here when it happened. Human leadership has abandoned the Glimmer in all but name. He opens his eyes. Tova's face waits for him to break. He does not. Gree turns to the elders. Their trills come fast and urgent, a cascade of short notes that bounce off the crystal walls. The elders answer in kind. The conversation lasts 30 seconds. Then Gree faces Renn. "We have decided," Gree says. "We will not let them take the core. We will burn it ourselves first. Each of us is linked to it. If we die, the core dies." Renn's hand comes up. "Stop." Gree tilts their head, the Glimmer gesture for questioning. "Do not destroy it," Renn says. "We have 24 hours. Give me the time, I have an idea." He pauses, his thumb taps against his thigh. Once, twice. "It is reckless," he says. "It might kill everyone on this moon, but it will make sure the Void can never touch another culture like yours." Gree's bioluminescence flickers. They are waiting. The ghost net carries human cultural archives, Renn says. Text, image, sound. But the Glimmer core is alive. It carries direct neural signatures. If we can encode the core's signal into the ghost net's resonance frequency, we can scatter it across every node. The core will exist as data everywhere and nowhere. The Voidkin cannot extract what is not physically present. Gree's head tilts further. The core is alive. Can it survive as signal? Renn has no answer. The silence stretches. Tova's voice cuts through. "I can modify the ghost net nodes to receive and store biological resonance patterns. The bandwidth is not designed for this. The signal will degrade. The core will be fragmented. You might lose parts of it forever." Gree turns back to the elders. The trills are shorter this time. A decision forms in under 10 seconds. "Fragments are better than silence," Gree says. "We will do this." Renn watches the elders move. They link hands, forming a ring around the core. Their weak bioluminescence brightens by a fraction. They begin to sing. It is the same song cycle he heard on the first day. The lament of becoming, the story of their species born from the moon's molten core. Every note vibrates through the stone floor into his bones. The sound is low and steady, a foundation rhythm. They are not mourning. They are encoding. Every note, every vibration feeds into the core. The core pulses in response, sending strands of light through the gel toward a jury-rigged relay Renn has bolted to the nearest crystal formation. The relay glows red at the edges, overheating already. Tova speaks from the projector. "Data packet 1 is ready. Confirm transmission." Gree's voice rises above the song. Transmit. The first packet fires. The core's light flickers and dims by a fraction. The gel seems to contract, pulling inward like a muscle cramp. Gree staggers. Their bioluminescence flares bright white, then fades to almost nothing. They brace one hand against the core's housing and stay standing. The transfer is killing them. Renn steps forward. He reaches for Gree's shoulder, then stops. He has no right to touch them. No right to offer comfort when he is the one asking them to burn themselves into signal. Gree looks at him, their voices thin. The elders will not stop singing. Neither will I. Renn lowers his hand. He nods. The song continues. The relay glows hotter. The air thickens with ozone until every breath stings. Tova's voice comes again. Packet 2 transmitting. Signal integrity at 87%. Degradation climbing. Gree sways. Their hand slips on the core's housing. They catch themselves. Renn stands in the center of the cave, surrounded by a dying song and a fading light. He watches a species pour itself into wires and frequencies. He watches them choose scattering over surrender. He does not look away. The second packet transmits. The core dims again. Another elder stumbles, their light guttering like a candle in wind. They do not stop singing. Renn's thumb taps against his thigh. A steady rhythm, a heartbeat. The third packet is cued. The relay screams on the edge of failure. The elders keep singing. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the ghost net receives what it was never built to hold. The emergency lighting painted the control room in washes of red. Tova Merrick worked by the glow of a single terminal, her fingers moving across the keys in a rhythm she did not have to think about. The air smelled of smoke from a shorted circuit panel in the corridor beyond the door. She did not look up when the shimmer appeared in the doorway. The Voidkin construct cast no shadow. It stood at the threshold, a humanoid shape wrapped in heat distortion stillness. Vexil's voice vibrated through the deck plates rather than through the air. You are transmitting the core's signature. You know we can intercept it. The resonance is unique. We will extract it from your data stream before you finish. Tova tapped a command. A secondary display activated, showing a schematic of the moon below them. A cluster of icons pulsed at the southern continent's crust, the tectonic driver array. She turned to face the shimmer. Do you know what this is? Vexil's construct shifted. The shimmer rippled across its surface. A geological weapon, planetary destabilization. You would not use it here. The moon is your asset. Tova shook her head. It is a planetary destabilizer. If I activate it, the Glimmer moon's crust will crack. The cavern collapses. The core is buried under kilometers of stone. You can dig for a century and find only crushed crystal. The silence stretched. 3 heartbeats. 4. Then Vexil's voice again, lower now, the vibration humming through the floor with less force. You would destroy the core to keep us from taking it. Tova turned back to the terminal. She pulled up the transfer status. The Glimmer data stream was still running, a steady pulse of light on the screen. Fragments of song, fragments of memory, fragments of a species choosing to pour itself into wires. No, I would destroy the moon to keep you from having it. There is a difference. She did not raise her voice. The core is dying anyway. The Glimmer are feeding it into the ghost net. By the time you dig through the crust, the data will be scattered across 200 systems. You will never reassemble it all. Vexil's construct flickered. The shimmer collapsed at the edges, pulling inward like water draining from a bowl. The projection stabilized again, but something had changed. The vibration in the floor grew uneven. You are willing to kill yourselves to deny us knowledge. That is not self-preservation. That is spite. Tova smiled. It was not a warm expression. No, it is persistence. You can destroy this station. You can kill everyone here, but you cannot kill the signal. Every node in the ghost net carries a fragment of the Glimmer now. You would have to hunt down every single one, and we have hidden them well. She tapped the coin across her knuckles. The motion was automatic, the metal warm from her skin. She watched the shimmer and waited. The construct flickered again. This time the collapse was deeper. The humanoid shape wavered, the edges dissolving into threads of light before reforming. The floor hummed with a frequency that felt like confusion. Tova had studied the Voidkin reports. She knew what that instability meant. Vexil was processing something beyond their frame of reference. The construct was a projection of the Voidkin's consciousness, and the consciousness behind it was struggling. You have made yourselves a threat. Tova shook her head. We have always been a threat. You just did not notice because we were polite about it. She gestured at the window where the Voidkin research vessel hung against the stars. You came here expecting to harvest. You expected resistance, but you expected rational resistance, something you could predict, something with a cost curve you could model. She leaned back in her chair. The red emergency light caught her face, deepening the lines around her eyes. You did not expect a species that would burn its own house down rather than let you take the furniture. The construct was silent for a long moment. The vibration in the floor steadied, but it did not return to its earlier confidence. When Vexil spoke, the voice was quieter, the pitch slightly different. The free systems will not tolerate a species that destroys itself to spite an enemy. You have made yourselves dangerous. We will withdraw from this system. But we will remember this, and we will ensure the free systems know what humans do when cornered. The shimmer dissolved. The construct collapsed into a single point of light that hung in the air for a heartbeat before vanishing. No shadow remained. Tova watched the empty doorway. She did not move for 10 seconds. Then she turned back to the terminal and checked the transfer status. Still running. The ghost net was distributing data across 200 systems. Fragments of the Glimmer were spreading through the void like seeds. She pulled up the sensor display. The Voidkin research vessel was moving. The gravity shear at its belly had gone dark. The ship was pulling away from the station, increasing distance, angling toward the system's edge. She looked at the tectonic driver status, fully charged, ready to crack a moon wide open. Tova keyed the deactivation code. The confirmation light flashed once. The rumble beneath her feet faded. The emergency lighting stayed red. The corridor still smelled of smoke. She exhaled. The air left her lungs in a long, steady stream. The transfer from the Glimmer moon was still running. Fragments of 1 billion years of history pulsed across the network, scattering into nodes she would never see again. She rolled the coin across her knuckles once, then caught it. Outside the window, the stars held their positions. The Voidkin ship receded into the dark. The door hissed open behind her. She did not turn. A technician's voice, young and exhausted. "Commander, we have a problem." Tova closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she turned. "What kind of problem?" The technician stepped into the red light. His face was pale. "The Voidkin ship is transmitting." "Transmitting what?" He held up a data pad. The screen glowed with a waveform Tova recognized immediately. It was the Glimmer resonance. The full pattern, every frequency, every harmonic. She stared at the screen. The Voidkin had taken a sample anyway, before the cavern collapsed, before the core buried itself. They had reached in and pulled something out. And now they were broadcasting it. The technician's voice cracked. "Commander, they are sending it on every channel. The entire Free Systems network. Anyone with a receiver can hear it now." Tova looked at the terminal. The transfer was still running. The ghost net was still distributing fragments. But the Voidkin had just done something worse than stealing the core. They had made it public. The Glimmer's living memory was now a signal anyone could intercept. Every carnivore, every collector, every species with a hunger for knowledge they had not earned. She picked up the coin. She ran it across her knuckles. The Glimmer moon hung below them, silent and dark. And the signal was no longer broken. The cavern felt wrong now. Wrong in its stillness, wrong in the absence of light that had danced through the amber gel for centuries. The resonance core stood dark, a column of frozen lightning gone dead, its strands trapped in translucent crystal that no longer pulsed. Renn's knees ached against the stone floor. He did not remember kneeling. Gree lay beside him, 1 meter of translucent skin barely visible in the gloom. Their bioluminescence had faded to thin pulses of blue, irregular, each one weaker than the last. Renn's thumb tapped against his thigh. No rhythm now, just a frantic beat that matched nothing. He had watched them sing themselves to death. He had stood there while 12 elders poured their consciousness into frequencies no human ear could hear, while Gree translated the lament of becoming into data pulses, while their bodies cooled and their lights died one by one. He had done nothing. He had let it happen. Gree's eyes opened. The bioluminescence flared once, dim and gold. Their voice came in broken standard, thin as air. "Did it work? Did we scatter?" Renn leaned closer. His hand found Gree's shoulder, warm but cooling. "Yes, the ghost net received the full transmission. Fragments of the core exist on 200 nodes across the sector. The Voidkin cannot take the whole thing. The Glimmer story will survive." Gree's skin pulsed one last time, gold, bright. a color Renn had learned meant joy in their language. Then the light faded. Their eyes stayed open, but Renn saw the focus leave them, saw something slip away that could not be called back. He pressed 2 fingers to their throat. No pulse. The skin was still warm, but the being behind it had gone. He stayed there, his thumb stopped tapping. Tova's voice came through the speaker mounted on his collar, rough and hollow. "Renn, I am sorry, but you need to know the Voidkin have withdrawn from the system. They are telling the free systems that humans are unpredictable and dangerous. That is a reputation that will protect other client species. They will think twice before trying this again." Renn stood. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else. He looked at the silent elders arranged around the dark core, their bodies still, their light extinguished. He looked at Gree lying on the stone, their hands still pressed against the crystal that was no longer alive. "That is not a victory," he said. A pause on the line. Then Tova's voice came back, measured, careful. "It is not a loss either. The Voidkin wanted the core, they do not have it. The Glimmer wanted to survive, they did, just not in the way anyone expected." Renn turned. A figure stood in the cavern entrance, small against the darkness. A Glimmer child. Their bioluminescence glowed gold, steady and warm, the only light left in the place. They stood with their hands at their sides, watching the bodies, watching the core, watching Renn with eyes that held no panic and no understanding. He walked toward them. The stone felt cold under his boots. Each step echoed in the silence where the resonance core used to pulse its song through the cavern walls. He knelt, the child did not step back. "What is your name?" The child's bioluminescence pulsed. A pattern. 2 short bursts, then a longer one stretched across 3 seconds. Renn recognized it from Gree's lessons, from the long afternoons spent learning the Glimmer's language of light and rhythm. It meant orphan. But Gree had taught him something else, too. The same pattern spoken in a different context, at the start of a song cycle, at the planting of a new archive crystal, at the birth of a child whose resonance had not yet shaped itself. In that context, the pattern meant beginning. Renn looked at the child. He did not know which meaning applied. Maybe both, maybe that was the point. Behind him, the core stood dark. The bodies of the elders lay still. Gree's hand was still pressed against the crystal, a final connection that no longer carried anything. But the ghost net was alive. 200 nodes across 200 systems now carried the Glimmer's neural signatures, their memories, their songs, their history of becoming. Not as a complete thing. Not as a single story told in one voice from one place. Fragments scattered, incomplete. Unkillable. The child stepped forward and touched Renn's hand. Their skin was warm, warmer than Gree had been at the end. Their bioluminescence flickered, a pattern he did not recognize. Not orphan, not beginning, something else, something new. The signal from the ghost net node on his belt captured it. The pattern was encoded, compressed, and transmitted across the void in a fraction of a second. It reached a node in a system 20 light-years away, where a technician named Carrick was logging archive transfers. Carrick had been with Tova on Relay 4 before the evacuation, before the Voidkin came, before he was reassigned to a secondary post where the war seemed an ocean away. He saw the new signal come in. He did not know what it meant. It did not match any Glimmer song cycle in the library. It was too short, too simple, like a single word spoken by someone learning to speak for the first time. He filed it anyway. That was his job. Receive, log, distribute. The species was not dead. It was being born again, one signal at a time, across the void, and no one could stop it. The child's hand stayed on Renn's. Their bioluminescence pulsed again, the same new pattern, steady and sure. Renn's thumb began tapping against his thigh, slow now, rhythmic. He looked at the child and spoke in standard, but the words felt like a translation of something older. "You are not alone. You are not the last. You are the first." The child did not understand the words, but they understood the rhythm of his thumb, the way it matched the pulse of their own light. They tilted their head and made a sound, a trill, high and clear, that echoed off the stone walls. It was not a word, it was not a song. It was a signal. And somewhere far across the dark, on a node that had not existed before today, a technician named Carrick received another fragment. He logged it next to the first. He watched the data resolve into a pattern that looked like the beginning of something. He smiled, he did not know why. The cavern held its silence. The core stayed dark, the elders did not rise. But the child's light did not fade.